Well, hello. I'm kind of sleepy. I mean, I just woke up, so I'm a little sleepy. But we're gonna go through chapter 2, living in an immaterial world, emotions, health, and the body-mind unity. I actually did this chapter last night, and then I realized because I kind of had a cold, so I was going through it and blowing my nose a bunch of times. So I'm like, going, that's embarrassing. So now I'm doing it over again. And I probably should just leave it up, but um. So this chapter the author mainly is just pointing out that you can't separate your mind from your body because they're really entangled. They're really, I mean, they're really inseparable. And he's also citing a quote. Uh, this author wrote a book called "Molecules of Emotion," which sounds like an interesting book, by the way. But one of the things is that the emotional health or mental health is not really visible. Well, it's somewhat visible. I mean, if people are crying or something, I mean, or angry, you can tell. You can kind of see emotions a little bit, but maybe scientists have not gone about to try to measure that. I mean, how could you measure magnitudes of emotion? I mean, I guess the tone of voice, how loud the amplitude of angry voice, or yelling, uh, or tears, like maybe volume of tears. So I don't know how many milliliters of tears. I don't know if anybody's actually done that, but yeah, the author of this book, Molecules of Emotion, is pointing out that it seems like in the medical field they're not really studying it because they don't. I mean, I think that is not so much as you can't see it, but the fact that I think there's a stigma against mental. Yeah, I mean, there's a stigma against it. It just kind of like I think a lot of people kind of view, oh, if somebody's quote unquote mentally ill, that you know, ooh, it's weird and I don't understand it. I mean, part of it's probably because people don't understand it. This might be part of it. Uh, and so there's kind of a stigma. I mean, I think that's going away. I hope it is, and it seems like it is more and more each year as people kind of realize. But some people, it's like, yeah, I'm like super anti-fragile. I'm made out of titanium, or I'm like the Terminator, and I grow myself back when I'm all shut up. I mean, there's people that think like that, and to me, my opinion is kind of arrogant, but that's and but we're all fragile, and I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the most powerful person in the world. You're still fragile. You're still gonna break, and it's guaranteed that you're gonna break. But I don't know why I started talking about all these things, but yeah. So another keynote I have, the author is he cites up Molecules of Motion author quite a bit, Candace Pert, and that author is talking about how virtually all illness, if not psychosomatic in foundation, is a definite psychosomatic component. In other words, if you look at illness, it's a cascade of problems. In other words, like a domino. The first domino goes down, next one hits the next one, next one. So it's a trigger. So, and I think in this chapter, the main point is that author's talking about most of the medical science is focused on like the last few dominoes that fall instead of way back here where it's all started from. And my own personal uh, traumas that I've gone through, where I've been in the hospital. Yeah, it definitely seems to be from my experience that most of the medical field kind of focuses on the last few dominoes just to try to stable. I mean, I think it's stabilization, so that further dominoes don't fall down. But then afterwards, I think they maybe look a little bit more at where the first domino fell. And the main thing is you want to stop the first domino from falling so that you don't have all these other negative effects. But yeah, it's kind of in machines and systems, it's more called like a cascade failure, and you want to stop the cascade from propagating throughout your system. So, um, trauma can also lead to panic attacks from unprocessed fears. Um, and there's a really good TED talk called "Hallucination Brain" by a scientist, and also I'll put a comment below on the scientist so you can look at the TED talk. It's a really good TED talk. I love the TED talk because it shows you, what you see in your eyes is not the reality. It's an approximation, and part of the TED talk, they show the authors they show a checkerboard and some gray squares and white squares, and your brain is like amazing machine that's got these processing shortcuts where if you see a tree in a shadow, the tree casts a shadow from the sun. Your brain is so used to that, it, I guess it may be hardwired into your genetic code that a tree in the sunlight is going to cast a shadow, and your brain will even interpolate the shadow so that even if there's no shadow there, your brain will actually put a shadow there. That's to me pretty amazing. I mean, it's like your brain's actually doing a real time interpolation, and if you watch the video, you even look at it, you're like, what? That's not really. And then just like and realize you just like so you have to kind of look with your like really close to the screen and then compare the squares, and then you say, yeah, that's right. My brain is actually doing an interpolation of reality, which is wrong. I mean, it didn't match the actual reality. The actual uh, frequencies of light is not matched in amplitude of light. I mean, it's so so yeah. I highly recommend watching the TED Talk, and I'll try to put it in the comments below. Um, so another thing the book talks about, which is really neat, the talks about like nurses have this intuition that the doctors don't seem to have. Maybe is niceness. If you're too nice to a person, you may end up with ALS. I mean, it's not a scientific basis of that, but ALS is a fatal degenerative nervous system disease, and the author's talking about the staff. A nurse would say, "Oh, this person cannot have ALS because he's not nice enough," and the other one's, "I'm not afraid this. I'm afraid this person has ALS because she's too nice." so, so I guess I mean being too nice, and that's probably what I sometimes I think I'm too nice, and it's not healthy. So they're kind of saying you need to be a little bit. Uh, you need to be assertive in certain things, and make decisions. It's not uh, one of the things that I have a small business, and one of the things I sometimes am too nice to people for too long, too forgiving for too long, and sometimes you really have to just make a decision and say, okay, this person's not the best fit here, and just gonna have to go to a new place. But yeah, so uh, the problem this book is talking about is if you're too nice, you may actually uh, having health problems because of that. In other words, I think being too nice is you're not in touch with your emotions, like particularly your anger. So another point the author talks about is killer natural killer cells in people who have suffered emotional distress or post traumatic stress disorder have lower natural killer cells. Even in young people, that's been shown by certain studies, and so um, and even like yeah, if, emotional loss, like if you had somebody close to you pass away, or it's potential the stress will increase the probability of a physical illness, mental stress. However, the author points out that it depends on how well you process the loss and what kind of support you have. Uh, and that's very important. And that's one of the things I have issue with, like just a nuclear family, because if you have such a small group and you don't have a closer knit, bigger group like a nomadic group, Dunbar's number, 150 or something like that, people, or some other large number. I mean, it seems like yeah, if you have more adults in a close knit group, you have more support, and so if something goes wrong and or somebody passes or gets injured or is really sick, it doesn't weigh the group down as much as if it was just a nuclear family. So I can see. I mean, that makes sense why there's a lot of uh, places where people go on Sundays to connect, quote unquote. But I mean, I kind of look at that as a band aid. But yeah, so it's interesting. Um, I think one of the key things is you need to know that you. I mean, first fact is we're all going to die within 200 years for sure. Uh, Most likely, I mean, 99.999% probability that and within 200 years from now, which would be year 2222 or almost 23, everybody here watching this video is going to die. It's life. It's hard to accept, but yes, I mean, I think if you're able to accept that like every day, realize that it's all going to end. You actually you appreciate your time a lot more. But if you don't do that, if you just say, "Oh, you know, I'm gonna live forever," or or there's an afterlife that I can go to, so this life doesn't really matter that much. I mean, that's I don't think that's healthy. I think what is healthy is probably to recognize that, hey, yeah, this whole thing could end any time, for any moment, and so you have to. I mean, it forces you to appreciate what you got. And a friend of mine I used to work with, we sat down at lunch. One of our colleagues passed away. Literally got run over by a truck watching fireworks. It was like a week before Fourth of July, and there's some fireworks going off. And I think she was probably watching the fireworks, and the person driving the truck was also probably watching the fireworks at the same time. And so both people didn't see each other, and then the game ended for like a colleague. And so I was really feeling sad about it. And I was talking to my former colleague, and and he made a really good point that uh, any day you don't get run over by a truck is a good day. So that's kind of how I try to live my days. Is that it puts 99% of the things that go on in life every day are just like nothing compared to what happened to my friend, my former coworker. So and I feel really sad about that. I mean, I cried about it. and but I even took her sailing a few times, or well, no, it was just once. But I really appreciate what she taught me by going through that. But that's a horrible thing to go through. And I think that's something that needs to be shared to really appreciate your how fragile everybody is and how fragile your life is, and just be grateful that you didn't get run over. But today, and it's a great day if you don't get run over. So all these steel caged machines driving around. Yeah, that's one thing I wish. I mean, one thing I envy about Europe is much, and a lot of other countries, maybe Southeast Asia, they're more designed for people instead of machines, and that's one of the things that's really a downside of the United States is we designed our cities for machines, not for people, and so people end up getting squashed, which is horrible. And I don't know why I think our obsession with cars, we we went from walking to horse carriages. Well, yeah, horses. We had horses for a long time. But yeah, then our obsession with cars caused us to design our cities for cars and not for people. One thing that's kind of frustrating to me, like when I go, I walk to the grocery store, and when I hit like where the parking lot is, there's like no there's like a short path of maybe like 20 meters where I can walk towards the store in the parking lot. But after that 20 meters, that first 20 meters, I have to navigate through all the rolling steel cages, and that would crush me. There's no designated path. It's just you and the steel cage machines, and so yeah, we didn't design the architects uh, didn't really design the cities, the machines. By I mean the city design the cities for machines, not for people. That's what I'm saying. It's not designed for people. I'm sorry. It's, we are we've. I don't want to go on that too much, but and so I mean, because I lost a friend, being squashed by a machine. So, anyways, it's just a sidetrack. I think any city that's built for humans instead of machines is probably going to be a better city and happier people and more people that love each other instead of hate each other. And I mean, that's another thing about the big cities. People just kill each other, sadly, because most of the time people are riding around, they're still caged and they can't see each other. They can't say hi, so they're all freaked out and stressed out. You know. But if more people walked in the neighborhood, walked to their stores, walked to a movie, to an event, or took maybe public transportation, people I think would be more friendlier potentially. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But okay, so off track here. The author talks a lot about uh, people who've lost family members in war. Also, even have a higher incidence of things like multiple sclerosis, cancer. Um, if you ever watched The Twilight Zone, the author, I think it's Rod Sterling, if I got the name right, he had experienced war in the Philippines, and I think he had like a 50% casualty rate or something like that. I read an article on Wikipedia on it, and so you watch the Twilight Zones, and you can see his trauma. I mean, just throughout all the episodes, pretty much. Yeah, I could see like his life experience is reflected and his work is like brilliant work. I mean, every Twilight Zone I watch would have a lesson of some kind. So, and in a way, I think he really expressed his trauma in a healthy way because he used it, he put it into his work, and his work became incredibly incredible stories, and it probably was therapy for him in a sense. So, the author also talks about women with post traumatic stress disorder have a higher incidence of ovarian cancer. So he's really pointing out the it seems like the medical field, the trauma area is here in the lower dominoes where the dominoes are, but then the domino way back here is where the emotional stress is, and that's what triggers all the other dominoes, including accidents. I mean, people who are probably in emotional stress are probably going to be more accident prone. I mean, more have more accidents. Okay, yeah. Author also talks about a lot of times, like I said, I think the emergency areas in the medical field. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any license in that medical field at all. So, but anyways, I'm just saying the hospitals kind of focus on the triage of the trauma, I guess, and they don't ask often. They don't ask questions of what led to that, maybe, and because they don't ask that, like environmental and contextual questions, the treatment or what's happening is not really properly diagnosed in a sense. Um, with my own experience, I had uh, a back injury and I was lifting weights. I was following a book called "quote unquote" Body by Science, and I didn't think it was really scientific. That's another thing about books, okay, or what people say. Even myself can be completely wrong and the completely exact opposite of what you need to know. So just I think it's good to be aware of that. So I was reading this book. It's written by a medical doctor, but I think he got advice. He got influenced by somebody who's not a medical doctor, didn't have any medical background, and he followed that advice. And so he wrote this book called Body by Science. And so I'm doing these weight lifts, maximum weight lifts, and just minimum set of minimum repetitions, so like one or two, three repetitions. So I was at my like maximum level. Uh, and then the weird thing was, okay, I got higher than my maximum at the time, and then it was a day I was lifting. And I was emotionally distressed about something in my life that occurred. I won't really talk about that in this video, but if you know me personally, you might learn, or you might know. But anyways, so I did. You know, there's like a conscious maximum. There's probably like a deep subconscious super maximum, or like if you're like your child is trapped underneath a car and you're gonna lift and you're gonna go beyond your normal conscious level lifting where you're gonna hurt yourself in some way, and that's kind of what I did. So, but the weird thing is, I was fine after the lift, and it wasn't until like 1 or 2 days later, and I think what happened was swelling because when your muscles and your body tries to repair itself, it starts swelling, and so I think the lower spinal cord probably swelled into. I mean, swelling pushed into my spinal cord, the lower spinal cord, and it just basically. I was in the bathroom like 2 days later, and I shut down pretty much. I had so much pain. I think I probably was unconscious for a while. I don't know how long I was unconscious. I fell on the floor and it just like. So, anyways, I ended up in the hospital, and $20,000 a night, by the way. Not cheap in the United States. And it's the number one cause of bankruptcy in America. It's hospital bills. So, anyways, when I was there, when I first got there, nobody asked, "Hey, what did you do the last couple of days?" or "What do you think's going on?" Because I don't know what. Nobody was humble enough to ask. You know, I don't know what's going on with you, so maybe you can help me figure out what is going on here. Uh, but I know they have probably the most difficult job in the world that anyone could possibly have. I mean, that's the most one of the most critical jobs in life is to be a emergency room doctor, nurse, or firefighter, or whatever, or a medical what do you call it, ambulance people, or EMTs, emergency medical technicians. So yeah, they that's probably one of the most important and most stressful jobs. So I can't criticize them for anything really, cause, but but yeah, when you get to the hospital though, it's like um, contextual questions aren't really asked. I think the focus is when you're at an emergency area, it's plumbing. It's probably plumbing and chemistry. Those two things are probably the primary critical problems that need to solve and uh, and solve immediately. But but the cause and effect uh, crash analysis or failure analysis or whatever doesn't really probably take place at all sometimes. And that's what the author's kind of talking about is he's saying these unasked questions and these unasked questions had everything to do with why the people are seeking the medical help. And so the author talks about the link between the amygdala and the brain's fear center uh, connection with cardiovascular disease. A woman with high job strain have a much higher likelihood of a heart attack than women who have less stressful jobs. Men that were sexually abused as children have triple rate heart attacks. So all these things he's pointing out are all these contextual environmental factors are contributing to or this potentially a source of all these a lot of these physical ailments. And it seems like the medical industry is kind of ignoring that, or maybe not not ignoring it, but not yeah, ignoring it, kind of. So let's see what else do we got here. Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much it for this my interpretation of this chapter. It's a great book. I highly recommend buying it. I bought two books, so I bought one for my father and for myself. Just because I really think the world needs good psychotherapy. I mean, because even just being born is a traumatic experience. I mean, you're going from not even breathing to I mean, eternally before not breathing, and all of a sudden you're in liquid, and all of a sudden you're breathing. That's traumatic. Just being born. Um, so so yeah, the next chapter is chapter three. The author talks. The title is "You Rattle My Brain," our highly interpersonal biology. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something, and Like I said, I highly recommend that you buy the book. Like I said, if you can. I mean, people can get what I perceive as like cheap psychotherapy on Sundays. You can you put the little money in the dish to help the cheap psychotherapy or band aid. It's like a band aid version of psychotherapy, but buying doing things like buying this book is probably worth like a full psychotherapy session, over $150, maybe more. I don't know how much typical therapists cost, but just buying the book is almost like having a good psychotherapy session. So it's worth like 10 times the amount that you buy it for. So, and I'm not trying to sell this book. I'm just trying to. What I like about this book is it helps people. It's just you if you spend money on it, you're spending money promoting mental health, and mental health is a huge problem, and it's a much bigger problem than people want to admit. It's a much more important problem than people want to admit. I mean, just look at all these wars. It seems like since time began for humanity, from sapiens, we were fighting wars. I think wars are a mental health problem. It's people think they don't have enough. You know, I mean, one of the good things that comes out of wars is okay, you advance your technology, but can we do that without fighting wars? I mean, that's one of the great things about the Apollo programs to go to the moon is at least instead of fighting a war, at least we had a Cold War to get to the moon, and we advanced our technology tremendously. I mean, digital computers, Apollo, the Apollo program helped develop digital computers. Allows you to see me talking to you right now. So the technology that comes, we don't have to fight active wars in order to advance technology. We can have much more productive competitions, but we haven't reached that level of intelligence yet. And I mean, the unfortunate thing is, it feels like we're kind of heading towards idiocracy. And if you ever see the movie Idiocracy, I'll try to put a link below our comment. The movie Idiocracy. That feels like what's happening in the United States. Is we're kind of in a trajectory of idiocracy, and I hope we can reverse that trend. I really, and in order to do that, we have to be humble, and humility is hard. I wish was humble more most of my life, but I'm not. But I try to be, because if you're not humble, you're never going to learn anything. And I think some of the most intelligent people almost more often than not say they don't know, because if you don't say you don't know, you're not going to learn anything new, and you're not going to. I mean, you don't want to be so humble that your brain falls out of your head and you're open or whatever. And, you got to keep your brain in your head, but you still need to, because every time you question yourself, you explore a little more, but then it takes longer to get things done too. So there's that. It's kind of a balance of efficacy. But all right, I don't want to carry on too long on this chapter, um, but to sum it up, it's just like, yeah, the medical industrial complex, which is one of the highest causes of bankruptcy in the United States. Actually, I think it is the highest cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Doesn't really look at the dominoes higher up in the chain, and here's the perverse thing: capitalism. It's an incentive for people to go through the medical industrial complex for profit. It's like you have more bodies going through there, and you keep them alive, but you have extremely expensive care instead of the much more affordable solution is capture that first domino, keep that first domino from falling down is mental health. Medical industrial complex wouldn't make so much money. See, that's the perverse incentive of capitalism is extremely perverse. And the same thing with the military industrial complex. The same perverse incentive to go to war constantly, all the time. So that's one thing I think the father Excuse me, I got a cold, so I'm like it's my handkerchief all the time. But the father of capitalism, quote unquote, father of capitalism, Adam Smith wrote a book, Wealth of Nations. And one of the things he talked about was the end result of capitalism was the vile maxim of the masters of mankind: everything for yourself and nothing for other people. And we are kind of in that late stage capitalism, and I hope we could turn things around. I've been following another author. Just wrote a book. I think it's called "The End of the World Is the New Beginning," something like that. Peter Zion. He's optimistic. Uh, I think we have, in order to survive, we have to be optimistic, and the heart, it's got to be dominant. But you also got to have the pessimism in your head, because you can't ignore the lighthouses. They help you navigate to try to figure out where you try to steer your ship. If you want to, you got to focus on what's your destination and your journey. So, all right, that's it. I need to stop talking, and I hope you're doing well. You had a great day, great morning, great afternoon, great evening, whatever time you're watching this, and you take care of yourself.